As we move further in our data analysis set, the next set of functions that come is around something called as count. Remember, we had already done a couple of functions like sum and product and average. Now we're going to use another function called a count, which will basically count the number of instances of a parameter that occur, as well as then we go ahead and use these functions count, sum, and average with conditions. So we use functions what are called as count if, sum if, and average if. And then we look at a combination of some of these functions where we can use a sum and a product together, right? So let's begin with the count set of data. Count gives us three broad different function sets. The first one is called count, the second one is called count A, and the third one is called count blank. Let's say we have this set of data available with us, which spreads over a set of about 16 rows roughly, right? Now we need to count the number of instances that appear there. So when we look at count, count as a function, if I click this open, is counts the number of cells that contain numbers. Remember, only numbers, right? So if I basically include this entire range and I say OK, you will find that it gives me the answer as 2. That's because we have two numbers, 1, 2, 3 and 2, 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, right? So we have only two numbers. Count A, on the other hand, there's a function called count A, which if you open the range, count A, open bracket, and then open this, it'll find the number of cells in a range that are not empty. Number of cells in a range that are not empty. Once again, you select this entire range. It not only gives you the numbers, but it also gives you those which are not empty, which means it counts these two as well, right? So it takes out these four data points and gives you the number of elements that are available. Then you move ahead and look at the next one, which is something called as count blank. As the name suggests, it will tell you how many blanks are there, right? So we put in count blank and you again select the range that is available and it will give you the number of blank cells. Remember, we had 16 cells, 12 of those are blank, 4 of those have any data that is a non-blank data available with them, and 2 of them have numbers. That's what count, count A, and count blank do for us, right? So that's the functionality of how count works. Now let's add a condition to this. Count is a simple function, but we can add a condition where it counts only if something happens, right? So count if is what we're going to do. Let's say we have data given for a lot of individuals with their hiring dates, number of years in work, with what is the job status at this point of time and what is the job rating at this point of time. I want to count the number of people who are essentially full-time employees, right? So let's say count full-time in cell G5. That's where we kind of count the number of employees who are full-time, right? What do we use? We use a function called countIf. Open bracket. And now you will see there are two parameters that it will take. First, it will take the range that you have to count, and then it will take the criteria that you have to count. So basically you take the range that you have to count, and the criteria is essentially whether it is full time, right? So that's the criteria that you're going to use. Ensure that we use exactly the same string that is there. So we use full time, and you see here that the small 7 has appeared. Click OK. That's the number of people who are working full time. Let's count them. 1, we have 2, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all the full time guys. There's no one else who's available on another on a full time contract. Let's look at the total half time guys, right? So count if, and we'll try this a slightly different way. We'll select the same range again, but this time in the criteria, instead of writing, you can either write half time like this, and you see the small 2 that appears here. Instead of this, you can also delete this and just link it to half time, right? You just link it to that cell D5 and click OK, and it gives you the same answer, the number of people who are working half time. Let's look at this, and let's look at this is half time, and there's another one who's half time. And similarly, total contract, that's count if, select the data set and say